Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to this month's Research Matters. I'm Erica Salzik, the Department Administrator for UT Southwestern's Human Research Protection Program, and I will be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to go over some general housekeeping items really quick. So first, if you have any questions for presenters, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentation. This session is recorded and will be available immediately after the conclusion of the live session by clicking on the Microsoft Teams live link in the Outlook appointment. We will send the slides and handouts out via the listserv, and you'll also be able to access the slides and recordings on HRPP's Research Matters website, which can be found under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one via email but should have, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu to request a certificate. And lastly, we want to hear from you. So we are interested to know what topics you would like us to cover during these sessions. How did our speakers do and how our office is doing? So please do take a few minutes to complete the survey to provide your feedback. You may also access the survey using your phone via the QR code or your computer by selecting the link. I'll also drop in a link for the survey in the Q&A in just a moment. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to begin with Maya Bird, who will be providing some updates in the IRB office. Next, we'll turn it over to the Regulatory Support Office. And today, Rasija Nambiar and Raj Varadarajan will cover how to submit the initial IND IDE application in part 2 of the 6-part mini-series on the FDA IND IDE regulatory process. And for our featured topic, Stephanie Francisco will be talking about recruitment and compensation practices. And as usual, we will conclude with an open Q&A session. So I'll turn it over to you, Maya.
Thank you, Erica. I've got a couple of IRB updates today. So first off, I want to share that we have some IRB staff changes. We have 3 new employees that are going to be joining the IRB team starting May 1st. We have Christina Howard going to be joining our team as a senior regulatory analyst, Colleen Markey as a regulatory analyst, and Bianca Young as a regulatory analyst. So we're excited to have these 3 individuals join our team, and so that we can get through the review of all of our business items. So the next update, or it's really kind of a status, we've had a recent change with the CRU approver process. I understand that there's been some hiccups with the CRU approvers. So as you come across issues, please let me know. I've been working with the RS department to work through some of those issues that we're having with CRU approvers. I do also want to mention that we have, or the Department of Pediatrics has actually been broken out into further divisions. And so if you are faculty working on a study, be sure that you select the appropriate pediatric department instead of selecting children's, because the study gets routed over to children's, and I think they're getting lost there. Again, if you've got any issues that you have with CRU approver issues, please make sure you let me know so that way I can work to resolve them and obviously understand if this is affecting any of the other studies. The last item that I wanted just to kind of quickly go through is for those of you that participated in the UT Southwestern Research Community Survey for the IRB, we thank you for your thoughts and the time that you took to complete that survey. We're in the process of working through the results and analyzing the results, and we're hoping to have outcomes for you, or kind of the results and any actions in an upcoming Research Matters. Those are all the IRB updates I have at this time, and I'll turn things over to Rasija.
Thank you, Mayat. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, our Regulatory Support Office, RSO, will continue with the 6-part mini-series on FDA, IND, or IDE regulatory process. And our today's talk will cover part 2, how to submit IND and IDE application package. I will be covering the IND portion and Raj will be covering the IDE submission portion. So let's get started. As discussed previously, this is the IND lifecycle, and throughout these mini-series, we will talk about each of these steps in detail. We covered step 1 and portion of step 2 in part 1 of our mini-series, done during last month's Research Matters, which you can watch the recorded video that is available on our website. Today, we will focus only on step 2 and step 3. And this is a quick summary of step 2 and 3, which I'll explain in detail in the next few slides. In part 1 of mini-series, we discussed about the two main types of INDs. They are commercial IND and research IND. Majority of INDs submitted by our investigators are research INDs with research intent. Commercial IND is used when a sponsor, usually a corporate entity, intends to commercialize the product and the goal is to market the product. In the interest of time, I will not go into detail on commercial IND submission pathway, but just briefly would like to mention that sponsors of commercial INDs and all subsequent amendments are required to submit information electronically in the Electronic Common Technical Document or ECTD format, as seen on the right-hand side of the screen here. I want to focus on research IND submission process today. As you all know, the IND application can be directed to one of the two agency centers, the Center for Drug Evaluation Research, that is CDER, and Center for Biologics Evaluation Research, that is CBER. Each center processes different categories of agents as covered in our previous talk. Once the study team puts together the IND application package using the templates provided by us, or that is available on our RSO's website, and also by having all the required documents from external sources, such as cross-reference letter, package insert, etc. ready, you may contact our RSO team for review. Then, when review is complete, the next step is to submit the application package to the FDA. I'll first go through the CDER submission process and then explain the CBER submission portion. So how to submit IND for drugs to CDER? There are two main submission options as seen here. Option 1 is using CDER NextGen portal. It is agency's preferred electronic submission method today, and especially after the pandemic, the agency went through major digital transformation. CDER NextGen portal enables submission of research IND documents through a pre-signed and registered account. The advantages of the system are reduction in paper submissions, standardized data, and increases the quality. It is an integrated platform for one-stop shop as it enables submission of not only the initial IND application, but all the ensuing submissions that will be tied to that research IND. It serves as a central location for submitting all the submissions, viewing the submission statuses, and reviewing communications from the FDA. The portal submission currently serves for one-way communication only, since no responses are received here and they arrive by email. The good news is RSO staff can submit your IND package to CDER through this portal on your behalf. But at any time, the investigator team is also welcome to create their own account for these submissions. Please note things to consider during document finalization for submissions before initiating the submission. Documents must be in PDF or MS Word files. No compressed zip files are allowed. Follow FDA recommended naming convention as seen here. For example, for initial submission, start the file name with IND number 0000. then investigator last name, document name, drug name, and date.pdf. This is how your file should be named. Please also note that the size limit for this portal is 40 megabytes. In the next few slides, let's see the steps involved in doing these submissions via the CEDAR portal. Step 1. Create a CEDAR Nextgen portal account. Link to this portal and step-by-step guide to create your account is provided here on the slide. Step 2. On the welcome page, click Research IND option. Step 3. Click the New Submission tab, then review the Getting Started information on that page and click Next tab as seen at the bottom of the screen here. Step 4 includes addressing these 3 questions on this page. For the first question, select yes or no to whether you have an IND number for this submission. If it is the initial or very first submission package, you won't have an IND number. For the second question, select yes or no if this submission contains clinical trial. If yes, FDA suggests to include the clinicaltrials.gov registration number, that is NCT number, if available. For the third question, select yes or no if this submission is related to COVID-19 treatment. Once submission details have been completed, next, step 5 includes uploading all the required IND application package documents and then click Next. Instead of uploading, you also have an option to drag and drop the files in the section. Finally, the last step is to review the entered information and click Submit. On submitting via the CEDAR portal, an automated FDA acknowledgement to the submitter is received in email moments after the submission. This notification comes with an ID number for the submission, that is the event number, received for every submission. Please note this event number is not the IND number. Then the number of files included in the submission and the submitter's contact details are included in this notification that is received. Missing files can be added subsequently, and any technical issues can be reported to the portal management. Now, let us next look at the following couple of slides to learn more about the CBER submission process. How to submit an IND for therapeutic biologics. Once again, therapeutic biologic products are regulated by Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, that is CBER. Unlike CEDAR for drug IND, there is no comparable electronic submission portal for CBER. CBER prefers research INDs that are exempt from eCTD requirements to be submitted using CBER submission email box. The submission path is through email directed to an FDA receiving hub for the submissions, which is the CBER Document Control Center. Some important points to remember is that CBER has email file size limit of 150 megabytes. So if you have a large IND application documents, you want to break down the submission into multiple emails. An email subject should contain the name of the submission and the sequence number, for example, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3 in such format for each message in the sequence. Please also keep in mind that if you are using UT Southwestern email, there is an outbound file size limit of 50 megabytes according to the IR UT Southwestern policy. This is the CBER email address. Please make sure that you do not send via secured email unless FDA has specifically instructed. One can set up secure email with the agency. Request to establish secure email with FDA should be sent to secureemail@fda.hhs.gov. Option 2 includes mailing the hard copy. The CBER Document Control Center, that is DCC, will process paper and electronic media like CDs, DVDs, USB drives, etc. submissions sent via US mail or courier to the address seen on the screen here. But it is the least preferred method by CBER, as indicated in this letter from CBER. So we recommend using option 1. For the CBER email submissions, an instant acknowledgement may not be received. RSO can follow up if there is no acknowledgement or any sort of communication from the FDA even after a week. Thus, after submission, next step includes FDA review of the IND application. So what happens in the first 30 days? Once IND application is submitted, FDA issues IND acknowledgement letter, which includes the review division, IND number, division contact, official FDA date of receipt. Between day 8 and 27 of the submission is when FDA reviews the application and holds internal safety meetings. During the application review, FDA may request document revisions, explanations, or answers to specific questions with a typical 24 to 72-hour turnaround time, that is partial clinical hold. Since this review process is very important and you don't want to lose time or are unfamiliar with how the responses need to be put together, it is recommended that the investigator team keeps our RSO team in close and frequent contact for assistance in getting the responses prepared and submitted. Responses to information requests are sent to the FDA in a reply back email. In addition, responses may need to be submitted via CDER portal if the initial application was submitted via the portal. The FDA may place a proposed or ongoing trial on clinical hold if FDA finds that human subjects would be exposed to an unreasonable and significant risk or injury. The sponsor investigator is not qualified by training and expertise to conduct the trial, etc. When all responses to FDA queries are satisfactorily responded, FDA makes final decision and study may proceed letter or IND approval is obtained. Complete clinical hold is when concerns and issues are not satisfactorily addressed. FDA will notify the sponsor investigator as soon as possible after making that determination. It's usually by telephone on or before day 30 after the submission of the IND to not initiate the trial. Sponsor investigator, that is the SI, may proceed with a clinical investigation once the SI has been notified by FDA that the investigation may proceed, or after 30 days if the IND is not placed on clinical hold. Once an IND is in effect, a sponsor may ship the investigational product, but clinical investigation may not begin until IRB approves the study. Also, please remember to register the trial in clinicaltrials.gov as well. Thank you all for your time to listen to my portion of this talk, and I'll now pass it on to Raj to speak on the IDE submission portion.
Thank you, Rosija. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's switch gears from drugs to devices. Today, I'm going to discuss how to submit IDE to the FDA. In the flow diagram, IDE submission is covered in steps 2 and 3, which represent a very important stage in the IDE life cycle. IDE submissions are targeted to the Center for Radiological Health, which is known as CDRH, and CBER divisions of the FDA. Overall, there are process similarities and process differences in submission within the IND and IDE, some of which I'll point to in the talk. Here is a quick view of the summary of tasks and priorities in steps 2 and 3. which are the submission and review process in the IDE lifecycle. Document preparation is the first step in the submission process. IDE application for a majority of devices goes to an online electronic system called CDRH portal, also known as Customer Collaboration Portal. For a small fraction of devices, the submission is made to the CBER. The CDRH portal only accepts IDE submissions containing electronic or soft copy files and engages a functional module called the eCopy to process them. Submissions to CBER can be through eCopy or via email attachments. It is easy to misunderstand the eCopy submission and e-submission. They are not the same process. The e-submission is an online filing process, very much like the e-filing of your tax returns. For instance, the e-submission is completed in an online template at the FDA site with the option to upload a few documents as needed. The whole application then gets published for the FDA to review. eCopy, in essence, is the pod function of the CDRH portal. It is meant for uploading the IDE files without any online template to complete. The portal function is not to just receive documents. It has one other feature, that is to check the documents' technical standard requirements before they are accepted and processed. That represents eCopy's unique capability not featured in the CDER NextGen portal. Another functional difference with the eCopy route is it is a two-step process. The first step, receiving documents at the portal, and the second step, completing an eCopy file validation, which is aided by a dedicated submodule that enables document delivery to the final destination, which is the FDA database. Without meeting the eCopy technical requirements, the FDA will not process the IDE submission, which will be placed on eCopy hold until clearing the issue or issues. The eCopy hold is preventable by running through the files, running the files through the validation step that checks them for compatibility with the prescribed technical standard. This is a prerequisite to the submission. Three elements need to be met for technical standard requirements: the type of document file, the document size, and document naming convention. RSO can assist in checking all of these. IDE documents can be Adobe or PDF files version 11 or lower, with the total size of all the PDF files together not exceeding 50 megabytes. Statistical data are usually in Excel, SAS, or XML format. They fall under non-PDF documents. In addition, there can be other non-PDF documents such as videos, X-ray images, software code, etc., to be designated as miscellaneous non-PDF files. There is no apparent document size specification for non-PDF and miscellaneous files. eCopy naming convention requirement warrants checking the whole IDE application package, since frequent eCopy hold due to non-compliance happens in document files. Document naming convention follows a combination of a three-digit numbering to identify the document number, such as 001, 002, an underscore after that, then the document's descriptive name, such as cover letter, administrative document, and so forth, followed by .pdf. For multiple folders, the document numbering in each folder should be done sequentially from 1, 2, 3. In any event, all the document files are consolidated and submitted as one compressed zip file. This file compression feature, again, is unique to the eCopy, not seen in the NextGen portal. In addition, the eCopy naming rules specify not to have any special characters such as asterisks, exclamation marks, brackets, or symbols. eCopy technical requirements in organizing the document files for eCopy can be really demanding tasks if you haven't done this before. But the good news is RSO can assist the study team. We are available to help the study team verifying the technical standard requirements as well as completing the submission. There is also an FDA link for additional information on eCopy process and guidance to refer to. Now, the submission process. Paper copy applications have long been a path for targeting IDE submissions to the Document Control Center at CDRH or CBER divisions. For most devices, CDRH portal accepts applications. Whereas for licensed devices working with the blood and cellular products, IDE submissions go to CBER via eCopy or email attachments. The FDA has now plans to gradually eliminate paper submissions by October 2023 to make the process relatively simple. Some of you may know how the extent of the multiple tasks and the time involved is for submitting the IDE paper documents. In contrast, the eCopy path offers a lot of convenience for submissions just with the sign up for the portal account, for which you don't need to be a sponsor. Now, getting into the portal, there are a few easy steps to accomplish in the CDER portal to ensure that files are eventually getting submitted to the agency database for review. When the submission is successful, the submitter gets a system-generated email notification for its receipt. The right side panel of this slide is the display of the first page of the customer collaboration portal for which devices one can select eStar or eCopy. The eStar path is meant for 510K or pre-marketing application for devices, where the eCopy choice, whereas the eCopy choice serves for IDE and Q submission filings, and RSO can assist the investigator teams in document submissions through the portal for both needs. Now, the registration step is the key to open your access into the system. The portal account setup is relatively simple, and you as a submitter need to register with your email and password information. Please remember to reset the password every 90 days. After registration, the submitter can sign into the eCopy system to navigate the different sections. When you sign in, the opening page greets with some message before navigating into the portal. The message can be a reminder to complete a task that was not completed previously. Just to remember, the FDA submissions through the document portal should be done by 4 p.m. Eastern, if not after 8 a.m. the following day. This is because all the portal activities are managed during the business hours when the IT staff monitor and oversee the system for troubleshooting any software issues. Navigating the portal takes you to the next step. It opens into a format selection page. This is where you branch out to make the choice between eCopy and eStar path. File selection for uploading. When you are in the eCopy path, the next step is to upload files into the portal. For uploading, you can either drag and drop the files or use the browser to access from the computer source. Prior to uploading, please check the document integrity first at your end, and then after uploading, complete the file validation process by using the eCopy guidance, the hyperlink, in order to do the file selection. So if you find an issue when you run it through the validation process, you can cancel the submission and redo the uploading before going into the next step. The penultimate step is to compress the validated documents into a single zip file. The confirmation step. If everything is in order, the confirmation step for the eCopy standard should give the green signal to proceed with the application submission. The submission completion message is displayed in the system process flow, while an acknowledgement email goes to the submitter. Aside from that email, the submitter will receive an update in 1 business day notifying the investigator of the submission status, whether it is on eCopy hold or the IDE review is in progress. If no such update is received, the submitter should email the FDA to cccp@fda.hhs.gov, where CCP stands for the Customer Collaboration Portal. There is a 30-day review period for the IDE application, similar to the IND. As a first communication, the FDA sends out a newly assigned IDE number. When the IDE application review is complete, one of the following outcomes is likely. Approval. Approval with conditions. Staged approval, meaning that some part of the study is approved with conditions to meet, while the remaining part is approved without condition. And then exempt status or disapproval. Technically, 30-day past IDE submission should mean approval, unless the FDA communicates with a message for clinical hold, application disapproval, or request for additional information. After the FDA approval is received, there are several tasks that may need to be accomplished before the study begins. First, on the administrative front, to mention a couple, the study site finalization. There may be multiple sites, so again, they all have to be finalized. Device procurement at the investigator site or sites. This has to be scheduled. The second part is the operational front. Here, the IRB approval has to happen. The ct.gov registration formality has to be finished, and user training for the device as may be needed. That has to be scheduled. And then any funding formalities that has to happen at the institutional level. This is the time to execute such tasks. So all will be set for the IDE study to start. With that information, we conclude RSO's April month presentation on IND and IDE submissions. We believe that this part 2 of the mini series is also useful for your needs, and we will very much appreciate your feedback on the quality of the content and presentation. And in the interest of time, we request that the Q&A can be accomplished via Teams chat or email. Just to remind everyone, our next mini series presentation scheduled on the May 16th will be another important regulatory topic on modifications to IND and IDE. We certainly hope that you will make the time to attend the future mini series presentations as well, which we'll be looking forward to. One last thing to add for the benefit of those who may like to go back to listen to the presentation, just to repeat what Erika said in the beginning, there is an archival of the previous talks in the YouTube at the UT Southwest HRPP site, as well as the SI support site. Thank you all very much. Now, let me turn over to Stephanie for the continuation of the Research Matters presentation. It is Stephanie.
Thank you, Raj. Give me just a moment to pull up my PowerPoint. All right, so today we're going to talk about recruitment and compensation practices. Just an overview, we're going to go through the HRPP policies, IRB considerations when it comes to recruitment and compensation, and then types of recruitment materials and compensation schemes. So first, our policies. So identification and recruitment is the first contact between researchers and potential participants, which precludes the informed consent process. UT Southwestern patients may be contacted for participation in research studies unless they have expressly indicated their desire not to be contacted. Accessing medical records is a form of recruitment. Use of medical records should be limited to the minimum necessary to identify potential participants. Researchers can use this recruitment technique if the Privacy Board, which is the same as the IRB at UT Southwestern, grants a full or partial HIPAA waiver. Researchers with an established relationship with potential participants may make contact with individuals who may be eligible for a study. Cold calling is allowed, however, the researcher needs to notify the potential participant's treating provider of their intention to contact their patient. The researcher's responsibility when recruiting potential participants is to protect their privacy and confidentiality. It may be acceptable to pay or receive compensation for recruitment and screening related activities that are unrelated to whether the participant ultimately enrolls or completes the research study. However, finder's fees, payments, or bonus payments are not allowed. So on to policy 4.2. Sorry, I started with policy 4.1 and I should have said that. My apologies. Policy 4.2 is guidance for advertising to research subjects. So recruitment materials should include the name and address of the investigator and/or research facility, a summary of the purpose of the research, basic eligibility criteria, a brief list of excuse me, a brief list of participation benefits, the time or commitment required of subjects, and the name and phone number of the person to contact for more information. Advertisements should not make claims that the test article is known to be equivalent or superior to any other drug or device, or make claims that are inconsistent with applicable FDA labeling. Recruitment materials should not include terms like new treatment or new medication drug without explaining that the test article is investigational. Recruitment materials should not promise free medical treatment when the intent is that subjects won't be charged for participation. Recruitment materials may state that subjects will be paid to compensate for their time and/or travel, but should not emphasize the payment or state the amount to be paid by such means as larger or bolder type. Recruitment materials should not Recruitment materials should not contain misleading or coercive language, state that a treatment is safe or effective. The IRB will want to review all recruitment materials such as flyers, website language, broadcast language, press releases, emails, and similar documents. If you would like more information or would like to review the entire policy, please visit our website. Now, this is a little bit about Form C, which is where we have our study population. Form C should be completed to accurately show the population or populations to be enrolled in the study. The inclusion-exclusion criteria should be clearly defined. The plan for contact is especially important because it helps the IRB understand how subjects will be approached for participation. The plan should show if subjects will be contacted directly or if the onus of participation is on the subject to contact the study team. As previously stated, subjects can be recruited from a chart review. However, if there isn't an established relationship between the PI and the potential participants, then the PI should contact the subject's provider and inform them of the plan to contact their patients. The recruitment setting is also a critical part of the recruitment process, as this will help the IRB understand that subjects' privacy and confidentiality is being appropriately protected. If a study team states that they will recruit subjects in a busy emergency department waiting room, this would not be considered to be an appropriate plan. The PIs or study teams need to think about where the recruitment conversation will be discussed and ensure that no one other than the subject can hear or see the conversation happening. Recruitment discussions should take place in a private space where the subject feels comfortable asking questions to the recruiter about the study. This is an important consideration when using the phone to call study potential participants. Study teams should always ask if the potential participant is in a place where they can speak confidentially to the recruiter before the conversation commences. Lastly, the IRB needs to know if any type of recruitment materials are being used. Section 6 of Form C should match Section 6.9 of the Parent Smart Form, and all recruitment materials should be uploaded into Section 6.14 of the Smart Form. Remember that the IRB needs to review all communications between the PI and participants. We will discuss the types of recruitment materials in the next slide. There are several different ways to notify potential participants about a research study. I've listed a few ways here, but there are several more depending on the patient population and who you're trying to reach. I was a recruitment specialist when I worked at a research site level in San Antonio. I've used all of these methods with the exception of my chart, as that is UT Southwestern specific. I've even had advertisements in movie theaters before the previews start. I provided an example of a recruitment flyer I made for osteoarthritis of the knee. The site's contact information has been redacted. This flyer clearly shows some of the inclusion criteria and mentions that compensation may be available. It should state that this is a research study. However, this ad was not created for UT Southwestern, otherwise that would have been a required element. As I explained a moment ago, other required elements of recruitment materials may include the name or address of the PI or research facility, summary of the purpose of the research, basic eligibility criteria, a brief list of benefits, the time commitment, and a name and number of whom to contact for more information. Other types of recruitment could be community outreach, participation in health fairs, and phone scripts when calling potential participants. Recruitment can be time-consuming and resource-intensive. There may be barriers to participation, such as language barriers, cultural differences, or logistical constraints. Some populations, such as vulnerable or marginalized groups, may require special considerations and approaches to recruitment. Please remember that regardless of the types of recruitment materials used, the IRB must review these documents in language. Now let's talk about compensation. Compensation helps to attract and retain participants and acknowledges their time and effort. Compensation should be fair, responsible, reasonable, equitable, and align with the study's requirements and risk. Consider the study budget and funding constraints when determining compensation amounts. Monetary compensation is one type of compensation. This can include cash payments, gift cards, or checks. It should be based on the time and effort required and be consistent with local regulations and guidelines. There's also non-monetary compensation. This can include services, products, or access to study results. It should have tangible value and be relevant to the participants' needs and interests. There's also in-kind compensation. This can include reimbursement for travel expenses, childcare costs, or other out-of-pocket expenses incurred during participation. Please note that lottery types of payments are not appropriate, as this type of compensation violates UT system policies. Clearly communicate the compensation details to potential participants, including the type, amount, and timing of compensation. Provide written documentation of the compensation and ensure that participants fully understand it. Be transparent about any changes to the compensation plan and address any questions or concerns from participants in a timely and respectful manner. Please remember that compensation is never a benefit to participation. Now let's talk about some IRB considerations when reviewing recruitment materials. The IRB will consider the recruitment plan for the study. Considerations include the methods of contact and whether there is too much contact with potential participants. Contacting potential participants too many times could be considered coercive or badgering, which could possibly sour any relationship the subject has with UT Southwestern and lead to complaints. As stated earlier, recruitment materials need to contain enough information for a potential participant to make an informed decision about their choice to participate in a study. Compelling recruitment materials that clearly explain the study purpose, benefits, and risk will allow subjects to have enough information about a study and may establish a foundation of trust between the PI and potential participants. There are no set regulations or rules about the amount of compensation that should be offered to a research subject. The IRB will consider if the amount is too much and may be coercive. Compensation should be based on the amount of time and task or procedures that subjects are asked to complete. For example, offering $200 to complete a survey that takes 5 minutes could be considered coercive. Likewise, offering $1,500 for a study that will take a year to complete with several study visits and invasive procedures may not be considered coercive. The IRB will also take in consideration what types of compensation will be offered for examples, money, gift cards, dinner, movie passes, etc., who will be obtaining consent from the participant, to whom the compensation is being offered, whether or not subjects or their insurance will be charged for participation, and whether there will be a change in the responsibility for patient care should the potential participant choose to enroll in the study. Compensation should be fair and reasonable and align with the study's requirements and tasks and risks. So we're going to open this to questions in a moment, but let me give a few closing comments. Subject recruitment and compensation are critical components of research studies. Best practices, considerations, and transparency are key to successful subject recruitment and compensation strategies. By following ethical guidelines and effectively communicating with participants, researchers can ensure that their studies are conducted with integrity and produce reliable and valid results. I will now take any questions that you may have about this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And so, yes, this does conclude the presentations for today's session. And we are going to pause for a few minutes or a few seconds to see if you have any questions and give you some time to type them up. Okay, so at this time, I don't see anything, but while we wait for you to get them typed up, I just want to remind you of the survey. If you can just spend a few minutes to complete the questions, We will use the information to improve the content of these sessions and how we present them. We will also be able to see what areas we need to work on in the office and what areas we are excelling in. And I'm still not seeing any questions, so I'm going to conclude. I want to thank our presenters, Med, Raj, Rasija, and Stephanie, and thank you all for attending today's session. The next Research Matters session is scheduled for May 16th, so have a great rest of your week.